morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, the educators. First of all, let's say our praise and gratitude to our God due to all of His blessing at this time. And I'd like to say thank you for the opportunity that has given to me. But before we go further, let me introduce myself. I am Puspitasari from Senior High School 3 Boyolali. I would like to give our motion today. Our motion is, this House believes that scholarships should only be granted on the basis of financial necessity. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I am from Affirmative House will give division of this motion. Tell the issue and why we support this motion. Providing scholarships for underprivileged students is an example of national development in the field of education. Scholarships are grants in the form of financial assistance given to individuals that aim to be used for the continuation of the education achieved. But first, I would like to limit our topics today only during coronavirus. The COVID-19 pandemic is an extraordinary disaster experienced by Indonesia. Until January 2021, confirmed cases of COVID-19 continue to grow. The government's efforts to reduce the spread of the virus through social distancing policies that greatly affect community activities. The education sector was not spared of the influence of this policy. Distance learning, or often called online, is the method chosen so that teaching and learning activities are still running while complying the government regulations. However, in its implementation, there are many obstacles experienced by students and the school. One of the obstacles that often arise is the problem of internet signal, constraints, and insufficient data. Many students do not have data to use, and parents are economically constrained by the COVID-19 pandemic. This greatly hampers teaching and learning activities for students. I believe that many students have experienced difficulties, especially in education during the entry of the coronavirus in Indonesia. In addition to learning through distance, as we know that we need a smartphone to be able to carry out the government programs, namely learning from home or online. Overall, the number of Indonesian children who are not in school reaches 4 billion people. Moreover, with access to education, which is currently difficult for those who lack the cost of living. In addition to requiring a smartphone or PC device, students also need a data to access the internet. But not all students in Indonesia are able to buy data for every day. The provision of subsidies to students is a public policy in order to expand access to quality education for all citizens without exception. The number of dropouts and not being able to continue their education stems more from economic problem, because many school-age people come from poor families. The increase in education cost is difficult to overcome with the ability to provide government and community funds. These costs threaten the access and quality of education service, and therefore a solution must be found to be overcome this education financing problem. The provision such assistance aim to provide educational service for the poor to be able to meet their needs in the field of education, so that students whose parents are unable or poor can continue to receive education. This is also in order to support compulsory education. The assistance program for poor students is part of the type of education financing, namely government subsidies to poor students by helping part of the personal cost of students' education for transportation cost, uniform and shoes, and pocket money so that students can continue their education, especially during the time of the coronavirus. Some form of government concern for this crisis is to establish a KIP program for the underprivileged, and with the current situation, the Ministry of Education and Culture, Nadiem Makarim, said the government would provide data subsidies for students, teachers, students, and lecturers during the distance learning period. What is the government providing scholarship assistance to these underprivileged students, and why? The answer is that all the students, including those from low-income families, have equal access to a better education. Why? So that education can be evenly distributed. And I would like to conclude by saying that I agree with scholarship should only be granted on the basis of the financial necessity. That's all. I'm Ayu and proud to be affirmative.